etc. The plan has already been approved by the Texas Division of Emergency Management and FEMA, that it meets their requirements for a disaster debris management plan. The other thing is having this in place allows us to get reimbursement in a disaster from FEMA. So we're asking you now to approve this plan.
Show of hands, who read all 278 pages of it?
Wow.
Thank you, Tanya, for that.
That's why I'm here. I can relay stuff already.
I didn't read all 278 pages. I skimmed 273. No, not really. It's a very impressive document. It's professional, and it epitomizes, and it's a testament to all the work you do, Tanya. We appreciate it. Councilman Harvard, do you have something to say?
No, basically the question was answered, because I was going to ask, was this an offshoot of the work that you do for the best Southwest cities? So
Yes, sir.
It is. Yeah.
that came out.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt
No. Item 4D is a resolution authorizing a microsurfacing pavement treatment contract with Viking Construction. This is through a City of Grand Prairie contract. This is in an estimated amount of $355,066. As you know, as part of our street maintenance program, we do a number of different types of street maintenance, including crack sealing, microsurfacing, and mill and overlay. So this contract is for microsurfacing of streets that are appropriate for that type of treatment to extend the life of those streets. And this is in a contract, entering into that contract, we do have funds budgeted in the FY20 street maintenance budget.
And various treatments are applied depending upon the condition of the street.
Correct, yes, sir. Going with the most cost-effective treatment based on the condition of the street. Item 4E is a resolution authorizing an application and acceptance of a grant from the North Central Texas Council of Governments through the Incident Management Equipment Purchase Call for Projects. We will be requesting a grant of $83,659 from the COG. And what we are requesting the grant for is various types of vehicle barriers for two different purposes. One, for accident management control barrier system. The other one type of barrier is for major events when we need to provide security. Again, as you know, the changing world of terrorism and things like that, we have to be more prepared for those kinds of attacks. And as you've noticed, in our events, 4th of July, Christmas parades, we have large vehicles stationed at strategic locations to do that. With this, if we can get this grant, we would buy barriers then that would be able to take the place of some of our vehicles and not put vehicles out there.
I was impressed by, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Looking at the brochures on those barriers, and I went to the traffic incident management training by DPS at COG, and I was very interested to find out that the #1 priority in an accident is to get everything off the highway. It's not to take care of people, it's not to take care of stuff, it's to get everything off the highway so that the thoroughfares don't get backed up. And these types of barriers that I see in here are going to be very, very effective. So I'm glad to see us going for that grant. So I'm sorry, Pat.
No, just a couple of things, questions real quickly. One, is there a matching requirement?
I think this is a 100% grant. Is that right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good, okay. And the other thing is, I guess this is designed in addition to our police and fire provisions to just kind of make ourselves a harder target in the case of we have an event and someone has a notion to maybe try and do something at that event. These things can make us somewhat of a harder target.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Item 4F is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement between Duncanville and the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, and this is to provide state attorney representation in state asset forfeiture cases. As you know, in some types of cases, we can seize contraband and you have to go through the court process to have that declared as forfeiture. The DA's office provides that representation by state law. The new DA has wanted to standardize all of the contracts with the cities, and they've also increased the cost for that representation from 25% to 35%, and then from $500 per vehicle to $750 per vehicle. But the DA's office is, of course, the ones that we have to work with to do that, asset forfeiture. So we are recommending, and they've asked for all the contracts to be returned by March 1st, so that is why we're bringing that to you now.
Yeah, but I heard what you said, and I read it in the package, and I still don't understand it.
Did we do this before?
We have, yes, we have had that before. We've had an agreement, but they're wanting a new agreement, and they've increased the cost. Yes,
So-
yeah, but we have, yes, used the DA's office for that representation.
So what's an example, if we
Like
take
that
a
stuff that we
car-
just took from the place, and it was cannabis oil, and the police confiscated it, and the next day the law changed?
Well,
Is that-
that's,
No.
Why are we not giving that up?
Well, that's a whole different story,
Yeah.
because there's still a criminal matter being implemented. This would be a forfeiture that the proceeds of a house, a boat, a car were used. The proceeds of ill-gotten gains from either drugs or some kind of criminal activity was used to purchase a home.
Okay,
We get the whole house.
okay.
So it's a civil proceeding that the Dallas District Attorney's Office files and conducts a hearing to show to the judge that that house was built by
Ill-gotten means.
ill-gotten means,
Yeah.
from drug deal, those kinds of things. So they would forfeit the home and then it would be sold.
But the
So-
reason
But
why-
what's this percentage that's being talked about
The
here?
percentage
That's
is
what they're
they
saying.
sell the
That's what
home
they're
for
saying.
$100,000, we get 65, they get 35.
Okay.
And the reason why they're doing it instead of you is because it's criminal.
Yes. It's a forfeiture proceeding under state law.
So
Under the code.
there has to be some long process before those assets are formally forfeited by the
it
defendant.
can take a
or-
while,
It
right,
can
it
take
can
a
take a
while.
while for those forfeitures to actually go through.
And
Okay.
these are different than forfeitures where we're a drug task force has the same forfeitures that we get through the federal government. We
Okay.
have a fair amount of those, and there's two separate things, it's just state proceeding.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just really didn't understand the mechanics of this thing.
So this contract is for them to prosecute, and so those fees are their retainage, their cost for providing those services.
Okay.
And so do you think that's less than just hiring a criminal attorney? That's familiar
You
with criminal?
can't, because the state law is written, it has to be the Attorney
DA?
General.
Prosecuting attorneys.
So they just have a,
Monopoly.
and they can set whatever fee they want. God.
35% of the value of the
Yeah,
forfeit.
and from 500 to
Call whatever,
750
yes.
on a car. That's a lot of money.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
What?
You're supplementing the DA's office, because they get all that money to use for their activity.
I feel better.
Item 4G is a resolution approving the tax increment financing district reinvestment zone number 1 annual, the 2019 annual report. Each year, the TIF board, the TIF district is required to submit to the state of Texas comptroller an annual report on the reinvestment zone. So this is the 2019 annual report. It has been approved by the TIF board on January 30th.
And so that what was it, 5 or 9 million on the trail?
Those are just, that was when the TIF zone was created. Those projects were just types of projects that were in the original budget for the TIF zone over the life of the TIF. Those projects, there's nothing specific about them. None of those are in progress or have been approved or anything. And as you can see, the only real expenditures from the TIF have been for administrative costs on producing the report. which was $500 this year.
That was just the
So-
process to report, $500?
We have to have some financial auditing or reporting done on it, and just making sure that the calculations are correct on what we have received in tax revenue. So there's some cost.
Richard get it?
Richard and
Did you get-
Jessica do work on that stuff.
That was your $500? Look at it.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Okay. A couple of housekeeping items before we move into briefings and presentations. If you will recall that we are now, as of Friday, in election season for the city. And our practice is in the city of Duncanville that during the mayor's report, council members' report, and for citizens' comments, we do not record, we don't televise. We don't televise those. Okay, so I will be advising, I will say this again when we get out there, just so you're aware of it, for the citizens as well, so that they're aware of it. And secondly, housekeeping, we do have a yes.
On that one, and I'll say like I said last year, and I know during the last year, the council chose to continue that practice. I still think that practice needs to be looked into, whether I was on the ballot or anybody was on the ballot. But I don't respect your thoughts for sure, being on the ballot this time, but that it should just be open, and we shouldn't have to cut those off. We're still looking at something that happened years and years ago. I don't even think the school board doesn't really even do that. So I would hope at some point we will move from that policy as a group and continue to move forward until we see something that desires for us to continue that practice.
I desire for it to continue. I think you just don't do that, Darren.
We're the only one, we're the only city around that does that, but just want to bring that
Mr.
up.
City Attorney, you have an opinion on that?
You are deliberating about a matter which is not on the agenda.
Okay,
That's a good opinion.
That's true. Okay.
thank you.
Second item of housekeeping is that, as you're aware, we do have a special meeting on the city council after the regular city council meeting. So we will adjourn out there, and we will convene the special city council meeting back in here to go over the RFPs. Okay?
And I know that items for consideration, you said that we would talk about out there, but this one is sort of confusing to me. The 5A and B, C, I get, but I don't understand the division and how.
Do you want to explain
Why there are
two things?
Yes, there's two things, because we, in the Code of Ordinances and throughout our code book, we have statutory boards, like the Board of Adjustment, Zoning Board. We've also, by ordinance, created the Park Board, the Library Board, so they're all governed by ordinance. The qualifications are set forth in 2-4 of the Code of Ordinances. So in order to incorporate that Section 5, we have to amend the Code of Ordinances for those boards. The resolution governs all the boards, the other boards that you created, social, multicultural board, the old set of boards when Ms. Humble was city manager that we created for citizens. And those boards are governed by resolution. They were created by resolution, so we have to amend a resolution for those boards that still remain to include the three items that you talked about their being registered voters, about ad hoc for those under 18, and the other qualification, which escapes me right now. but
Striving to.
Striving to
membership
appoint
rights.
from-
Striving to have representation from the districts.
And that's the
at
one
large.
that I added to the boards and commissions in the code book for those statutory boards, and then, or what I'm calling statutory boards, and the ad hoc boards are governed by resolution.
So the separation is required based on the formation of those.
Yeah, a
boards and
resolution
commissions.
cannot amend an ordinance can't amend a resolution, so you have to separate these.
And ordinance, you just said supersedes a resolution.
No,
No,
It's just, you
has
can't.
nothing to do with it.
They're
it has
just two
nothing to do with
separate
it, because
things.
they're created
How
by
do-
ordinance, so you can only amend the code of ordinances by another ordinance. Resolution cannot be amended by an ordinance, it can be
Amended by
superseded.
resolution.
It has to be amended by resolution.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
And, but I'll see. Okay, on the, which one is this? The one that's the second one, B, you have in the resolution that the city council has determined that the requirement of board and commission members be required to reside within a specific council district is not necessary, not that we strive.
Says after be it resolved, it says that members of the boards and commissions created by resolution shall be registered voters, and that the council shall strive to appoint members to said boards and commission from each such council position, and that the council may appoint residents of the city under the age of 18 and ad hoc boards and commissions. That's in section 1. The recitals are merely just historic references on why we're amending them.
Section 1?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Section 1, I see that.
And it says that those remaining boards and commissions, in addition to the other requirements, that the members of the boards created by the resolutions shall be registered voters, that the council shall strive to appoint members to said boards and commissions from each such council position
Now, where are you reading?
under section 1.
Under section 1.
Should be page 5 of 6, I think, on your.
This is, I'm looking at 3 of 6.
Oh, you're looking at the old ordinance. We
Oh.
put that in there as
Just
the original,
the
or the original resolution just for
What's being
historic.
amended.
Yeah, so to go
historic.
to the resolution that ends in R, 2015-02-0332R, that's the resolution
Okay.
you're voting on tonight.
Right.
Okay, I get it, that's what I did.
Got it.
But the old
Very
one-
confusing.
There's history, then there's what's actually being done tonight.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see. Moving on to briefings and presentations. Discuss amending land use regulations pertaining to certain neighborhood services and retail businesses. Mr. Hugman, does say in the working papers for this that Mr. Cooks had asked for this to be on the agenda. So, turn it over to you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to me. Thank you very much. And I don't, the presentation
Okay, or
itself.
do you want to- That's fine.
Oh, no, I was going to refer back to the city manager since he has the presentation, but I'll lead the way by asking, the reason I asked for this to be put on the agenda is as we looked at all of the businesses that's in our city, that's kind of overlapping each other, and not leaving room for wellness and food wellness for our community. By eliminating or not having as many in proximity to one another, it's going to help our city grow in the wellness part of our overall city, and not just dollar stores within miles of each one of them. So I took this from one of our sister cities, Lancaster, who has already passed this already. So I'm asking the council to listen to the presentation that Kevin has pulled up here for a second. And I know the attorney has worked with Lancaster before. And so I really would probably refer to him first, to ask him to tell us a little bit more about what he did in Lancaster.
The problem that Lancaster had, which is a little different than you had, and you need to keep this in mind. Lancaster has only really one grocery store. And as a result of that, one of the things that they went through the process is why is that? And so they started making inquiry from major grocers like Tom Thumb and Kroger and whatnot, and they explained to them that this proliferation of dollar stores, they compete with the grocery store. And I know you find that hard to believe, but a lot of I want to say, kind of whimsical purchases that we make as shoppers when we go grocery shopping is things we buy chips and Cokes and all kinds of things. We don't buy fresh foods for a lot of those things. And these dollar stores have started selling large amounts of those things. And so they keep people out of the grocery store. And so when you're in the grocery store, we all buy stuff that we never intended to buy when we're there. But a lot of the stuff's healthy stuff. It's fresh foods, it's fresh meats, and those kinds of things. And this is based on their study. So what the grocery store was telling Lancaster, and what it's told a number of other cities, one of which is Red Oak, that has this same issue that, and I helped them work on theirs. They didn't have grocery stores. And so the dollar store was creating what they call a food desert, meaning that there was lack of fresh food, a lot of healthy food, that the dollar store was then becoming kind of a local neighborhood grocery store. And this had a negative impact, and for nutritional purposes, those cities then began to create distance separation for these variety stores. That's what I'll call them variety stores. If I say dollar store, then I'm picking on one of them,
Right.
one of the companies. But these local or small variety stores, chain variety stores, were then creating food deserts that we were depriving our citizens of healthy food choices. And so with only one grocery store in Lancaster, it was becoming acute because they were having a proliferation of variety stores. So they used that as a basis upon which to create distance requirements for the variety store. You can only have a bed be separated by 2,500 square feet or a half mile. And so that they would be sprinkled throughout the town and therefore not creating food deserts for our community and help pushing out or keep from coming in their case, major grocery. They had the same problem in Red Oak because everything was on the east side of town on Villa Road. They had variety stores on the west side of town, and we had a couple of major grocers said that they would not locate at or near where a variety store was because of the competition it created for not your weekly visit to the grocery store, but your intermediate, which is a lot of their business. So they changed some of the definitions. We defined variety stores in those cases, and then created some distance requirement from one variety store to another.
Yeah, 2 miles.
Now, yeah, that was not my recommendation.
That's what it ended up being.
But it won't get rid of what's already there.
Right.
So what it did is basically in Lancaster's case precluded them from getting another.
So they become non-conforming?
Did what they,
They become non-conforming uses then, or what happens when they?
Well,
I
the
couldn't hear you. I
grandfather,
couldn't hear your question,
if they,
sorry.
Monty asked if they became non-conforming. So if one went out of business, if they didn't reopen it within 6 months, they'd lose their non-conforming status and you couldn't reopen.
so did passing this ordinance result in grocery stores going into Lancaster?
Not yet.
Well, then
I mean, it's only been
Then it's
like
a moot
18
point.
months.
And you have a clarification here, the 99-cent only store in Camp Wisdom does carry produce.
Oh, I know, some of them do.
So
And meat.
Well, and so what we did was we just wanted to, so in this discussion, I had talked with Bob about how Lancaster did it. I also talked to Lancaster city manager, so I understood what the premise was for how they developed their ordinance. So knowing myself that there are some grocery stores right next to variety stores in Duncanville, I asked our GIS analyst to plot all of the variety stores and all of the grocery stores. He just plotted them by name, so we didn't really look to see what each carried. But as you can see, the proximities of them to each other, to me, kind of negated the argument and the issue that Lancaster has. Because we have grocery stores close to these variety stores already, so it did not seem to me that we had the same legal basis as they did.
And the fact is, what they wanted to do did not produce the effect they wanted.
But
Grocery stores did not come into the city as a result of doing this.
But you don't have, it's not given that time to do that though, at the same time.
In
They
2
just
years.
did it. She
How
just
long?
talked to me
It's
today.
been about 2 years.
Yeah, it's
2018.
Yeah, it won't happen overnight.
The problem is you can get Tom Thumb or Kroger's not just gonna build a grocery store
Right.
overnight.
Yeah, it's gonna happen
So
overnight.
there's some demographic issues and socioeconomic issues that go into any major retailer going into.
In your
any
discussion
area.
with the city manager, did she indicate there's progress that grocery stores are looking at doing what they intend?
I didn't ask her that.
But again,
I
you're opening up,
talked to
you're opening up for opportunity. You don't close it in to say, is it gonna happen, everybody start talking to you, just run into your town. Actually, if you talk to most of our citizens, and many people probably heard this before, when they see something open, they're like, all you guys are doing is opening dollar stores.
All the time.
And so that's what we're hearing from citizens, regardless of what another city may say at this point. And I guarantee you that the new shopping center that we just opened in Winco, being an open facility, something's gonna pop in there that we don't really, that's already close to another dollar store that's right next to it already. There's, not even on this map, I looked to see if there's a couple missing already that's not here. So we have enough within our area.
So
for us to look
what's your
through.
ultimate desire?
The desire is to limit, is to ask the staff to go back and give us a recommendation of how close, if any others come in, should we have those in our city.
So it's still a proximity issue, it's not a numeric issue of how many?
Yes, because we're not, as the attorney just said, we're not asking the ones that's here to leave.
No, I'm not, I know that, but I'm
Okay.
saying, is it your desire or
It's
the
to-
council's desire to say that we will not have more than X number of variety stores?
That's not what they
within our
said,
city
is my, Opal talked to me today, and she said that what they required was that 25% of the square footage had to be for produce.
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
Okay,
It's
well,
in the ordinance.
I wouldn't have a problem at all with having that, because like I said, this 99-cent store has produce and meat, and they compete, hands down, with the grocery store.
And so we're saying, do we allow more? Do we add more coming in? I'm just saying.
But I'm
we
gonna say the
reduce.
market is what the market is. I mean, I hear what the citizens are saying, but they have to understand too, that the market is what it is. And
What do you mean by that?
It means that the market is gonna determine winners and losers and not the government.
The winners and the losers, all we're saying is if you require, what I found when I worked for the Department of Child Welfare, some of the highest priced stores went in places where people maybe didn't have transportation or, they didn't have competitive, they weren't competitive at
What
all.
motivated them to go there?
Because when you got poor people and they can't go anywhere, they just pay whatever to get what they want.
And I guarantee you, if you listen
Is
to.
that wrong for them to do that?
I think so. I don't think you should take advantage of,
So reiterate, Mark, what it is that you desire.
Well,
staff
I
to
like
do.
for staff to go back and give the council recommendations on how close, if any, should additional variety stores come into our city going forward.
And
Or we can tell them how close we want them to be within our city, whether it's 2 miles or whether it's a mile, based upon the square footage in our cities already. I would probably tell you that when Jessica is out looking, she's not out looking for how many variety stores can come move into a particular spot. She don't have to come looking for them, you know why? They're gonna come and say, well, I'm gonna park right here and
be
do it anyway.
inundated.
So
And
Bob,
so
Bob, you crafted this for Lancaster?
Yes, sir.
Is it based on a template from another city, or is it
Well,
ground zero?
there's
Is it ground up?
studies, there's actually studies. There are studies that are done. A lot of it depends on where your grocery store is, where your retail is.
And they came up with the 2 miles, you said you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pick on them, but since we're talking about them, it basically precludes another store from going in there. I mean, that's not a
It's an
fact. I
ex
mean,
post facto, you're not
because-
putting another store in.
They only have so much retail there. It's along Pleasant Line, it's along Dallas Avenue, and Belmont. There are no other retail corridors in that town.
Yeah.
And where the ones are now are Houston School and Beltline, along Pleasant Run, and there's one on Dallas Avenue, 342, and 2 miles in any direction. There are no other retail spots. You can go 2 miles and barely make it out of town over there near the intermodal, and you can go 2 miles that way and you're in DeSoto.
The thing about it is, when you look at Lancaster, only has so much of its territory along the highway, and that's where a lot of economic development is. A lot of Lancaster is
Yeah.
inward, and so.
They do have Walmart.
Well, yeah, and Walmart's on the highway.
Yeah, on the highway.
And so I think that's part of Lancaster's problem, is that if they had more availability along the interstate, they could probably get a grocery store. But what they have is a lot of that stuff that's already been grandfathered in. You know, kind of like we have along 67, and it is what it is. The other thing is, one of the complexities in economic development is that the city and the property owner a lot of times are working at cross purposes. You know, the city's trying to get in businesses that the community will embrace and support and that sort of thing. And the property owner is just trying to get somebody in to pay rent.
That's right.
Okay,
And they suffer from some, because right across the highway is Kroger. Right across the highway is Tom Thumb, and they went to DeSoto before they went to Lancaster, and the group dynamic is it's centrally located. If you live over here in DeSoto, you gotta drive all the way to 35 to get to the grocery store. If you live in Lancaster, you have to go all the way to 35.
Well, I think one of the reasons why we got all the grocery stores is because we're the closest to Oak Cliff too. If you go in the grocery store, they're full of people from Oak Cliff, because they don't have any. They come in here.
So we have 10 plus in our square mile, in our square footage of our city. 10 plus variety stores. And honestly, I just think they're close enough. I think we have enough. I think at this point, if we just keep where we are and just build upon expanding our city, and I tell you what, don't take my word, ask the citizens. See what the citizens are telling you. That's what I've heard. If you don't, Jessica, have you heard any experience from you when we talked about variety stores in our city? I know you have your own. Please be honest with us and tell us your thoughts, whether it's what I'm saying or not what I'm saying. Not putting you on the spot. Not putting you on the spot.
Let me just, we are not out recruiting variety stores.
Oh, no, that's exactly what I'm saying.
But citizens think we are.
But
Yeah.
citizens also think that the city controls what business comes into the cities and which ones don't, and we don't. We control land uses.
I
And
understand
that is
that.
what we're going through with the zoning ordinance update.
Right.
So I will also defer to the city attorney to say that there are some things too that I don't know how legally defensible Lancaster and Red Oak's ordinances are right now. You know, they haven't been challenged yet, I guess. But is there a possibility they could get challenged?
Yes.
It was just
And
changed.
that's one of the things we have to always weigh.
It's just that you don't want them. This linchpin of the food desert is
They're selling.
the substantive due process reason that the regulation exists. You have to have a food desert where this distinction is irrational. And the court would say it's irrational. So that's a key linchpin. If you have other businesses in town, there has to be a legitimate government interest in creating the regulation. Just because we don't like them, that's
Right.
not why we're here.
Right.
But you just can't say, I don't like this use and I don't like that use, or there's too many of these, there's too many of those. To Mr. McBurnett's position is, the market gets to determine.
But what about used car dealerships? Because we stopped that.
You did?
Yep. Sure did.
They're still allowed. They're still
Yeah,
allowed
but they're
in zoning.
grandfathered. We stopped it. That was on.
What you probably did was you rezoned those
You
land,
can
those
zone the
properties,
properties.
and you zoned it to a category that did not allow them.
Well,
But
we
there
still
are,
did it.
but there are still zoning categories in the city that do allow used car
I
lots.
So our point, our responsibility is.
So if you zone out variety stores, that's a land use.
Our responsibility then to citizens, our responsibility for our city to grow It's not to say who's gonna come, but our responsibility is to make policy where we know can be attracted to come. That's our role, and that's all I'm saying here.
The net effect of this policy is a deterrent.
So how do you tell the difference? I mean, I don't like dollar stores, okay, so I'll just say that before I say this, but, I mean, how do you tell the difference between a dollar store and Ben Franklin?
You do it by
Well,
definition.
the one that's different, I keep saying it, the 99-cent only store is out of California. We first saw them in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They have 24-hour ones right across the street. That we, here in town, we get 3 trucks a week. And they bring produce, they get a lot of stuff from craft, major brands, and it's like new products.
But how would you, let's say that Ben Franklin didn't have its soda fountain and it didn't have its pharmacy, let's just say that.
They sell candy.
Right, let's say that, how would you say, okay, we want Ben Franklin here, but we wouldn't want the dollar store here? I mean, that's the problem.
I think you just talk how we write it up. So let me,
How do you do that?
I don't know,
I'd like to figure out.
get that to the experts. I just want to bring to the table and
My
say.
research on dollar product, the variety store that I call it, they have a square footage that they like. So square footage is a determining factor. What they offer for sale is a determining factor.
So I was just telling Don a minute ago, I'm having like 1,000 square foot dollar stores call me like daily. Now, 1,000 square foot ones. So now the Family Dollars and the Dollar Generals, which are both billion-dollar corporations, both of those are. They're billion.
And so is 99-cent.
99-cent. But now we're having these little mom and pops. Then they sell, what they do is it's a dollar store, and then they sell a cigarette, smoke shop, and then the next thing it's a couple of 8-liners in the back, too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, I'm fighting that in a couple of places right now in my own. They just put them in, and they rent from it. So it's a really bad problem. I don't know what to.
Today, without policy, we have 10 plus. Tomorrow, without policy, we have 20 plus. When do we stop? We stop
I
now.
don't agree with that, Mark.
Yeah,
I mean, I
but you'll
appreciate you saying that.
you'll see it.
But
Give it
I
a
don't agree
chance.
with that.
There's a grocery mart.
I will even say that, okay, now where we go say we can't have donut stores, they
We
serve
do
sugar.
that, we zone used
Do
cars.
we,
But
Do
you
we-
do that based on the use, not who, and
Not
so.
not the store.
Yeah, I'm not attacking the store.
So what you do with used cars is you say no one sells used cars in this market, and you do it by definition. You do it by definition here. You can't preclude a use that's lawful. Selling a car is not an unlawful business, so you've got to account for it. So you write the zoning regulations as tight as possible and see what happens.
and going back to that is that we are going through its own process, so let's just use the system to work.
Well,
That's what we
then,
started here.
yeah,
That's
he
what we
wasn't
started
telling
here.
you how to do it, he was saying there's a problem and this is
I don't want to
the way one city did it. So you got a better way to write it.
be right to fit us.
Yeah, we're
It's not-
11.
it's not-
Right to fit you all.
Yeah, right to fit us. It's not Duncanville dollar.
I thought we were 11.2, but we're 11.3 square miles. I'm seeing that written now, so are we?
And you
How
gotta see what your
I'd like
retail.
I'd like to make a suggestion, based on what you're asking for, Mark, is before we task staff to do the study, let's ask them to come up with a cost to do the study.
What's
Let's find out how much it's gonna cost to do that study, because it's gonna take some research. And if the dollar value of that is more than we feel like it's gonna be paid in terms of the worthwhile effect, the net effect of this ordinance coming out, then we have to balance that and say, is their time and their effort and their expense to do this research and come up with it and craft it with the city attorney, if the dollar value of that is a return on investment that we agree with as a council, then we embark on the study itself.
I think the study's done, Mayor. You got the study.
No, it's not.
You got the study. At this point, you just
Lancaster
crafted-
came up with a 2 mile length. So
So
looking at what we've got, 2 mile length may or may not be the right thing for us either.
So what?
So somebody's gonna have to figure that out.
There's two things. One, do we have a food desert? That's one question
We don't.
that needs answered. district based on what they
We don't have a food desert.
No.
Well, that's a key linchpin in this regulation. We may have to tag it a little differently, so what we
Yes,
do
if
is
you
change.
require, yeah.
Because you have what Lancaster does not have and has no prospect for it. You've got legitimate grocery stores, so that precludes you from a food desert by definition under the Department of Agricultural
So what gets
study.
crafted for
dollar
us
store, we may not have
is
it.
substantially
Exactly.
different than
Exactly.
Lancaster.
So we have to
Nice,
to some extent, you can do proliferation and use and separation. We've done that with convenience stores. When cities go wet, every Minimart, 7-Eleven, K-store, gas station in town went out and got a beer license. So what we did is made convenience stores of a certain size, or stores of a certain size, had separation requirements, so that an undeveloped piece of the property wouldn't turn into a beer store on every corner. And we can do some of that here, stay away from the food desert issue, because I don't think we have a food desert.
We do not have a defensible position to craft this based on a food desert.
So when you go through,
Other
to some extent, what you're doing in your zoning ordinance needs to be addressed, and this is part
Right.
of what Mark is saying. We need to redefine where our corridors are gonna be, what the uses are, and then we do things like we create neighborhood services. And you give me nail salons, pizza stores, and everything in those districts, and then keep your retail district. Maybe even you put the quote dollar store in there as a neighborhood service, and then save your major retail corridor for the real big economic retailers that we want.
And we just cannot afford to just keep waiting until something else happens, until we decide to create something. We're trying to grow our city even more so.
I keep going back to
But-
Ken. Do we have the in-house expertise to do this?
With our
Well,
city attorney,
Mayor, what I want to
attorney.
say,
As part of the,
what I'd
but
like to
as
say is, yeah, but I think you're going to say the same thing. It's part of the process we're going through right now.
with the zoning ordinance
With the
update,
rezoning.
you can do that, as the city attorney said. And so then you're regulating the use of the land that is more defensible for this. You define variety stores, and then you decide which land use categories you want to see them in. That will limit then where they go by that land use. That is more defensible than the food desert argument, which is what the city
So we're
attorney is saying.
saying, planning and zoning will look at this.
Well,
We
no.
are.
It's
We're doing
what we're
a
doing. We're doing it.
overhaul our
Understand
zones
that.
right now with Freeze and Nichols.
But we
Yeah,
So
but
do
we
kick
haven't
this
we
back
asked
to Freeze and
anything.
Nichols?
We haven't been asked anything. Freeze and
We haven't
Nichols
talked
doesn't know
about
how we feel.
That's what
That's what we're
meetings are
asking
coming
right
up.
now, is do we kick this back to Freeze and Nichols, because we're doing a major overhaul right now? Is this something
The
we can add
joint
to the
meetings that
task?
we are going to have with the P and Z is to ask you those very questions about
Exactly.
land uses and the zoning categories, which the first meeting is next week. So we will have those discussions, and that's what we're looking for, is that input from
Well,
you
I
and the
think
P and Z.
we've just kind of gone in a loop, because all you had to say is what you said. And that is that we can do it under land use instead of under a food.
I think we did try to say that at the
Well,
beginning.
no, because you can get saying
That's what
study,
the
you know,
attorney- That's what the
study.
attorney was saying 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, land
He was
use.
saying, he was
It's
talking
all
about the
land
land use.
Got
Yeah.
it, but it was
So-
how.
But you didn't
the-
get it 5 minutes ago when he
I
was
did
saying
get it. What we're talking about is how we got about it. And he's saying
So-
Freeze and Nichols.
You
Mayor.
weren't listening.
No,
So we're
you weren't
Mayor,
listening.
When we, yeah, go ahead, Don.
No, never mind.
When-
You go ahead.
Next week, when we get together with Freeze and
So-
Nichols, is part of our overhaul for the entire zoning package for this entire city, this question will come up, and that's a point in time when Freeze and Nichols is tasked with including this and coming back to us as a council and giving us an understanding of what this situation
And it's
is.
better off if you look at it in a whole, then that way, when
Yeah.
it looked at, we're picking on them, which is,
Then
are
why
we
did it
treating
come
them
about
differently
cost?
than other
Because
uses?
we're already using Freeze and Nichols.
No, what I think the mayor was referring to cost was the special study that Lancaster did to determine where food
Right.
deserts were.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what was confusing, because I was
Yeah, I was
thinking,
looking at
who are you
it, I was
talking
looking at
about?
our internal cost to do this, but now it's expanded to where it ought to be, and it ought to be in Freeze and Nichols. Okay,
Well, they're doing.
good. Okay. We got 12 minutes before we have to move out of here. What do we do with the city calendar then?
So we could come back and reset.
So we got a broker out there?
The third executive session.
All right, so we can, yeah, all right, so, okay, here's what, we've got a broker out there on executive session item number 3. Let's go ahead and conclude our briefing session at
Recess. Recess.
recess
6:48.
at 6:48. And if we can clear the room, please, we will go into executive session on item number 3. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 7:30, and I'm calling to order our city council meeting for the city of Duncanville, the 18th of February, 2020. And we apologize to our constituents for having let you sit out here with nothing to do, apparently. But we are back, and just for your information, we were only able to cover one of the 3 executive session items. And so we will be convening back into executive session subsequent to this particular city council meeting. And also for your information, if you'll notice for our city today that we have a special city council meeting that takes place immediately after this city council meeting. So we will actually adjourn this city council meeting, and I will reopen a new city council meeting to discuss the request for proposals for the executive search for our new city manager. And we will take that particular city council meeting back into the briefing room if you want to stay for that. So the time, I have no clue how long it's going to take. Please bear with us as we transact the important business for our city. So with that, let me get everything together where we need to be here. We will take our invocation, and the individual we had originally requested to be here are unable to be here for family emergency. So Councilmember Don McBurnett will lead us in the invocation. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you bestow upon us. We continue that you hope to guide us and be that beacon of light for us, that you will have us be open and touch our lives, and that we touch this community. And we're going to ask this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me on pledges to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated.
Agreement with Texas Coalition for Affordable Power, TCAP, for the purchase of electricity and enter into the TCAP Strategic Hedging Program. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing the approval of the City of Duncanville's Disaster Debris Management Plan. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing micro-surfacing pavement treatment services from Viking Construction, Inc. through the City of Grand Prairie, IFB number 17041, Amendment number 3, for the unit prices bid with an estimated expenditure amount of $355,066.12. 4E, consider a resolution authorizing the application to and acceptance of a grant from the North Central Texas Council of Governments 2020 Incident Management Equipment Purchase Call for projects to purchase various types of vehicle barriers in the amount of $83,659.12. 4F, consider a resolution approving an interlocal agreement effective April 4th, 2020 and expiring December 31st, 2024 between the City of Duncanville and the Dallas County District Attorney's Office to provide state attorney representation as defined in Chapter 59 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure in state asset forfeiture cases in which the city seeks the award of property seized as authorized by Chapter 59 of the TCCP not to exceed the percentages of and/or flat fees for services as contained in the agreement for property awarded. 4G, consider a resolution approving the Tax Increment Financing District Reinvestment Zone Number 1's 2019 annual report.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a second. Please vote. Motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, items for individual consideration. Item 5A, consider an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 2, Administration, by amending Article 1 in general, by amending Section 2-4, Qualifications for Service on Boards and Commissions, by adding a new subsection 5. If there's any discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to approve. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve and a second. Please vote.
Mayor, I'd like to say something about this particular item.
It would be nice if you gave me some indication that you wish to, but
Sorry about that.
we have a motion to approve and we have a second. I will open discussion if you would, Mr. Harvey.
Just real quickly, I'm going to vote against this particular item because when you look at the information that the city staff gave to us, it is supposed to tie back into one of our mission principles, and that is to be to have the most engaged citizens in America. And the problem that I have is that I don't see how in our principles we can say that we want to engage people and then turn around at the same time and say that there are certain people that we want to exclude. So that's why I'm voting against this.
I will comment on that. I do not particularly agree with your assessment of the information. I don't see that what we're doing is precluding anybody from participating by making sure that they're a registered voter. And what we're seeking to do is to strive, as it says in the second part, to make sure that we have adequate representation, striving to have adequate representation, even to the extent that we are permitting individuals who are not registered voters under the age of permitted to vote by being ad hoc individuals on our certain commissions. Those commissions are those that are not formulated by statutory laws. That's redundant, I know, but that are not formulated under statute, but are formulated under resolution by our city. So in terms of your opposition to that, I acknowledge that and I understand it, but I will be voting in favor of this.
And let me respond to that again. Look at the wording. It says that we're going to have the most engaged citizens in America. And so citizens are broader than people that are registered to vote. So I'm just simply saying that if there's an issue, the issue should be with our principles. And maybe we want to look at and change the principles to something else. I just don't see how you can do one and do the other at the same time. They seem to be opposites to me.
Okay. Ms. Jameson?
Asking people to register to vote. There are people in the United States who died for the right to vote. And to register to vote, to be on a committee, you would think that first you would register to vote and then you'd want to be on a committee. Something that has been left out is that you're also required to have your taxes paid. So asking that you register to vote to serve on a committee, I would think that that would be something that all citizens would do, is practice the ability to vote. If you don't want to, no one can make you, but to register to vote, to serve on a committee, and to pay your taxes, and that we're going to strive to have a representative from all of the districts, so the entire city will be represented. To me, that's just common sense.
Okay, I believe we've heard adequate discussion on this. Please vote. The motion is approved. Item 5B, consider resolution requiring that advisory and ad hoc board members created by resolution of the City Council be qualified voters, and the council shall strive to appoint such member from each district. Chair will entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Chair will second. Seeing no discussion, please vote. Motion is approved. Consider appoint, all right, we're in item 5C. Consider appointment of the chairperson for the Tax Increment Financing District, the TIF Reinvestment Zone 1 Board. Ms. James.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. As Council knows, on December 20th, 2016, they did approve a 20-year tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1. With that, the ordinance that created that zone was 2295. In addition to establishing the board, it also established that the City Council would have the authority to appoint the chairperson of that committee. The board would make a recommendation, and then it would come before City Council to approve. On January 30th of 2020, the board re-elected Kenneth Embry as the vice president of the board, and then also voted to nominate Michael Grace to reappoint him as the chairperson.
Is there a motion to approve
Move to
Michael
approve.
Grace as chairperson? We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Seeing no discussion, please.
We have a motion to be read, April. That motion is to be read.
Oh. I, Johnette Jameson, make a motion approving
Michael Grace.
Michael Grace and Ken Embry as, well, Michael Grace as chairperson, and Ken Embry as the, I guess, assistant chairperson. What is it?
You only need to appoint the president.
To the Tax Increment Financing TIF District Reinvestment Zone number 1 board.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Please vote. Motion is passed. Thank you. Item 5C, I'm sorry, item 5D is take any necessary action as a result of executive session. I will annotate that this is executive session number 3. There is no action to be taken as a result of executive session number 3. Moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Receive the Police Department 2019 Racial Profiling Report. And it appears we have both Chief Brown and Chief Lavigny approaching.
You're bad. What? You're playing a siren? Is here?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and present the Duncanville Police Department's 2019 Racial Profiling Report as required by law. The reporting requirements, as I mentioned, and as mandated by law, state that we must present this to you, our governing body, by March 1st. So that's why we're here tonight. on any motor vehicle stops which resulted in a citation, a warning, an arrest, or search. There must be comparative analysis done to evaluate these things that you see on the before you, which are to evaluate the number of motor vehicle stops of persons recognized as minorities versus those who are not, to examine disposition of those stops, to evaluate and compare search resulting from these stops, and information relating to each complaint alleging racial profiling against an officer. The independent analysis, or for the independent analysis, the Duncanville Police Department contracted, as we have for years past, with the Professional Development Institute at the University of North Texas, Criminal Justice Department, headed by Dr. Eric Fritsch. Their finding concludes that the Duncanville Police Department is fully compliant with the racial profiling laws as mandated by the state of Texas. And those conclusions are bulleted in the executive summary on pages 1 and 2 of the report you received. Are there any questions?
Having read the executive summary beforehand that was provided to us in the package, very simply stated, every aspect of our police department is in full compliance with every aspect of the law. And I congratulate you on behalf of council and of our city for making sure that all things are in direct order and being done very well in our city. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir, and a lot of credit goes to the officers that did the job. Thank you.
Seeing any further comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chief. Moving on to item 6B, receive the library quarterly report. Mr. Julio Velasquez.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you very much for having me this evening to present the library quarterly report. We are following the work plans that we have in place for the library. We are striving to expand the adult literacy classes that we offer. And part of those efforts, we are working with community partners who've reached out to us to offer their volunteers to help us expand that program, which we have been doing dutifully over the last year. So this will allow us, over the course of this next year, to fully expand that program even further, offering more ESL classes, GED classes, and citizenship classes to all our citizens and our visitors. This last winter, we were invited, the library was invited to participate by the United Way, which is one of our partners for programming, to their 5th annual Jungle Bells at the Dallas Zoo, which is an event that is open free to all families to visit. This was on Wednesday, December the 18th. And so one of the benefits of being there is we were able to engage with over 600 people, visitors there to that event, promoting all of our resources, materials, classes, and events. We were also able to participate and communicate with some of these other community organizations to engage them in partnerships for future programs as well. So we're looking forward to those connections that we made to collaborate in the future and provide greater expanded programming for our patrons and our citizens here in the city. These are just some of the images from that event that we had, part of our outreach program that we did. This quarter service measures, to give you an idea, we had about 34,075 visitors to the library, circulated about 30,000 items. We added 347 new folks to the rosters as library card holders, added about almost 2,000 new materials, and offered various classes and programs, and had about 2,000 folks attend those programs for us. Computer usage is also very big for us, so we had about 12,000 logins for people using our computers over the course of the last quarter. And of course, we always are very grateful to our volunteers who assist us in our programs, and had about 822 volunteer hours, and these are adult and teen volunteers that assist us in our various programs and events that we have. And we're always very grateful for their assistance to that. And that's all I have here. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions. I just want to thank you for all you do for the library and your leadership there for sure.
Thank you, sir. And I owe it all to my staff. I have a wonderful staff, and they do a great job. So.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, what we're discussing is, because we still have 2 items on executive session to cover, and so that we can conform to the agenda for the special meeting, it says that we will do the special meeting immediately following the regular meeting. We're going to do what we need to conclude the regular meeting. So right now, we will move from here into the briefing room and convene into executive session. We'll take those 2 executive sessions, and then once we finish with those 2 executive sessions, we will come back to item 2B, which we did not get to in the briefing and presentations, to discuss the annual city calendar. And so the city council calendar, so y'all got the order. We're going into executive session. We're going to do item executive session 1 and 2. We did 3. Okay, we'll do 1, 2, and 3. We will close executive session. We'll make a note of any action to be taken as a result of those executive sessions. We will then take on item number 2B on the city council calendar. We will then adjourn the city council meeting, and then we'll then go into the special city council meeting, which will immediately follow that. Time is 8:07. I guess, Kristen, are you up? Or who's got the calendar? You're up.
Yes.
I will cover it, okay. So Mayor and Council, we wanted to cover your calendar again, just to outline a few more things and verify a couple of things. On your calendar, first I'm going to go to March. We had discussed having the Strong Towns presentation by Kevin Shepard of Verdunity on Saturday, March 21st. I had actually talked to him about 2 different ways, one being a presentation like you all had, but this would then be open to what y'all wanted to do was the EDC, Park Board, Planning and Zoning, and staff, and then council if you wanted, but it'd be the same presentation. That would be $3,000, and we're looking at like 9 to 12 on that salary. The other proposal that he gave was to do kind of a workshop then with the group, which would be just interactive discussions and ideas, and then he would provide that information to us. That cost was $6,000. So since we're going through the zoning ordinance update, I don't know that that's worth doing at this point, but I wanted to get y'all, before I confirmed anything with him, we do have the date lined up. But I just want to make sure that what y'all want here on this.
Was the time going to be the same on the other?
Now, the workshop was a little bit longer. I think it was 4 hours, 9 to 1.
Well, I'm not up for a $6,000 ticket, that's for sure.
I think the timing on it is really good while you're going through zoning. I mean, I think because it just gives you more, what best practices, what's going on around the country. I mean, I get to see cities all over the country, and I'm telling you, there's some shifts going on, and this stuff here is cutting edge stuff. I mean, it's in zoning. While we're doing the zoning is when you need to know it. I mean, it's perfect timing to come in. I don't know if 6,000 or 3,000 or what, but
Yeah,
think
I
it is
meant
the
the
right
workshop
time.
part of it may not be, but the presentation part might
Yeah,
be
the
more.
presentation education aspect of it is well
Yeah.
worthwhile, and that's what I'm okay with. Even 3,000 is a bit more, but I'm okay with that. For having a joint P and Z, it's joint P and Z, right?
Well, we would
Or
invite,
all
we would
of them.
invite P and Z, EDC,
Yeah.
Park Board, and staff.
Okay, yeah. So it's pretty heavy
not the
duty.
public, just the boards.
You have to
It'll
invite
be
the public.
public.
It's a public meeting because we're all gonna be there.
I think it's a really good time. I mean, maybe it's enough because too much is going to be hard to absorb, but I think it's a good time to at least look at these principles, look at some of these principles. And while we're doing our zoning, so there's really some cutting edge. I mean, there's some of the best stuff right now is happening to cities like Duncanville that are only 11 square miles, 11.2 or 3 or whatever it is. Especially when we're measuring the results of these new developments and stuff, because that's what it's all about. It's about new development patterns.
So am I hearing a consensus then on the presentation piece only, similar to what y'all have?
Well,
before?
when you take the number of people and divide that into $3,000, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah. I think that would be probably as effective as anything, because otherwise it's just too much. you know,
Yeah,
to have.
Okay, I'm in.
yeah. I got a wedding at 2 o'clock, so I would be out of here right at 12.
All right, we'll confirm that. Second item then is also in March 23rd, a joint meeting with the PNC on the zoning ordinance. So before, when we talked to you all, we had scheduled the meeting next Monday, February 24th, as a joint meeting with PNC, and we scheduled a meeting in April, a joint meeting with PNC. As we have gone back through everything now with Freeze and Nichols, and looking at how to, and based on some of the discussion we heard from you all last meeting, we feel like it'd be better to break that zoning ordinance update into 3 workshops with you, so that we have enough time to go over things and have good discussion. So what we're proposing is to have a meeting then in March, on March 23rd as well.
So there's one on Monday.
February 24th is scheduled.
I won't be
March
here. I'll be out of
24th.
town.
And then March meeting?
March 23rd. It's shown on your calendar in the yellow.
23rd.
So if you're okay with it, we'll schedule
Then
that.
March 28th.
Am I hearing a consensus?
March 24th, it says 23rd.
24th.
Yeah, the 23rd,
March
February
23rd.
24th. We already had scheduled next week, for March 23rd, and then we have one on April 27th. Y'all had already agreed to April 27th. Okay, so we already have that one locked down.
March 23rd.
I'm good in March and April, but I won't be here Monday.
Next week, yeah, that's right. So told us that was,
April 27th.
we'd already confirmed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that.
Okay, all right. The next one is that we wanted to also look in June and try to schedule the June budget workshops. You recall that we have a preliminary budget workshop with you usually around the early part of June to kind of have a discussion with where we look at where we think the current fiscal year is going to end up, some of the things that we see on the horizon for the next fiscal year. So we're in the middle of our budget process at that point in June. And so last year we did a Monday, Tuesday evening. We split it up into 2 evenings. So we're proposing to do that again for the 8th and 9th of June, if that works for everybody.
You're lining this up for the new city manager.
Yes, ma'am. I am.
What if they don't work?
So if that's the case, your last day again is May
29th.
May 29th. Is there any way to get a briefing from you before May 29th concerning the budget? So she can help put it together?
I will be very involved in having this presentation ready to go, but we usually don't finish up our reviews and everything until around that time anyway, our first pass through with all the departments and stuff. So I don't know that I can say that it would be ready to go for a June workshop.
So who would lead us through that? The assistant city manager?
Whoever your interim city manager is, which I'm assuming would be the assistant city manager, yes, and Richard. I can look at our schedule. We're working on the budget schedule right now. And I can look at it. If you want to give me some dates, and I would prefer it not be the last week.
Oh, which one do
You
right on the
want it on May
29th?
31st.
So you won't want me to do it on.
Yeah.
No, I just threw it out. I'm not sure if anybody else had that preference or not. I just thought I would bring it up.
Yeah, we can pray for you at the same time.
If not, we can just keep it where you are, Mayor. What do you think? Keep it where it is? Or do
Send
we
you on
need-
your journey.
The weekend before, the 22nd, well, I mean, we could look at around maybe the 21st, 22nd, but that's also Memorial Day weekend, the 23rd,
Yeah,
24th. So I just don't know that, we're gonna be able to fit it in there.
Okay, don't worry about it.
But as I said, I will be very heavily involved in getting this presentation
I
ready.
think we'll have a city manager by then.
Here's Kevin's retirement party, we could do it during the party.
What it
You
would
can
be
do whatever
the
you like.
So it'll be,
No, I mean,
it'll be,
your presentation.
Paul will be,
Has Paul Paul get complete budgets before?
Pardon?
Have Paul completed budgets before?
Oh, yeah, he's been a city administrator before.
Argyle.
And also in Shenandoah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Where's
I'm fine with
Shenandoah?
that.
down by Houston.
I know.
So if those 2 days work, then we'll go ahead and schedule those and get them on our calendar. And then we were also wanting to look at, and I know this is getting out there a little bit too, but July board and commission interviews, we're proposing the 27th and 28th of July. I think that's similar to when you did them last
Last
year.
year.
Was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you've already got it on here.
Well, they're tentative, they're just so you can see them on here.
What was those dates?
That's why they're
July
doing it.
27th and July 28th.
Yeah, we color code.
I was gonna say,
I'm not yellow.
yours aren't yellow, mine are.
July 27th. They already have those on my calendar.
They are.
All right, that's really all we have for that.
Okay.
So I think we are done now.
All right. We are adjourned at 9:57.
Did y'all do the
Well, we
action?
have, we need to.
Yeah, we,
Separate meeting.
yeah, it's separate
Remember, it's a
meeting.
totally separate meeting.
Oh, okay, so it's separate.
What?
Any
No,
necessary
no
action?
actions to be taken on items 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, no action. And then adjourned at
Yeah, we're not having.
Adjourned at 9:27.
9:57.
9:57.